Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And once again, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Rotarians of Karen. And today, I'm delighted to have with us our Karen Club president, Lorraine Kirigia, who's joining us to share a little bit about her Rotary journey to date, and of course, her role as the president of the Rotary Club of Karen. Karibu sana, Lorraine.
Thank you very much, Moses. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us. And for me, I think I'd like to start off with just asking you a little bit about yourself, your background, family life, where you're coming from, your professional side of things. And I think one of the most important things, which is the distinction of your name. Some people call you Lorraine, some people call you Lorraine. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that quirky detail.
Thanks, Moses, and thanks for asking that. I hope my mother will be watching this. So I was born Lolaine or Loline, or I come from Meru. So I was traumatized as a child because nobody could say Lolaine. Try putting L and L in a Meru name. And so I didn't know what my name was growing up.
Are
I
you
didn't know,
kidding me?
yeah, I didn't know whether I was Lorraine, Lolaine, Lorraine. I was called all manner of things. So when I grew up, I decided, you know what? Or rather in high school, I decided, let me make this easier for people and call myself Lorraine. Was there was now R and L. So
Oh,
yeah, my name is interesting. So I leave it to people. I don't get offended anymore. So you want to call me Lorraine, it's fine. Yeah,
and you
but
actually grew up in Meru.
I grew up in Meru, born and bred. I came to Nairobi, a grown woman at 19 years of age.
Are you first, last
I
born?
am a firstborn of three in a family of three.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And you're also a mom? Yes.
Yes, I am a mom of a 9-year-old girl going to 19, Malika. Yeah.
So I gather she's an incoming interactor in due course.
She is. She's a class president currently. So my house has two presidents. So when everybody's calling me president, she keeps insisting, yo,
Even me.
I'm a president, man. Can you guys recognize?
Yeah. And what do you do for work professionally? What's your
So I wear a number of hats. My background is in marketing and communication. I run a business called Epic Lorraine Life Events at the moment. Primarily, what we do is we create unique events, epic events. So we don't do tent and chairs. We
no,
sometimes get
that's
those phone calls, and we're like, no, we don't know how to arrange chairs and tents and all that. But then we create events. We do bursary fund management. We do a lot of communication work. Yeah, that's who we are as Epic Lorraine Life Events.
awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Mm.
So share with us your Rotary journey. How did you join Rotary, become aware of Rotary, and of course, culminating in where you are today, which is the club president of the Rotary Club of Karen.
Yeah, so back in 2017, my daughter was in kindergarten, and two of the parents were members of the Rotary Club of Karen.
Uh-huh.
And so they kept telling us every Wednesday, please come and, come for a meeting. And this is what we do. So I hadn't heard of Rotary before. And some of my friends now started mentioning it because I do a lot of charity work. I've run
Okay.
an organization called Xmas Torch since 2007.
Okay.
And they said, just come. I mean, you do this by yourself with a few friends, but come to an organization where you can do this at a global level and you have more hands to do, more impactful stuff. So then I got invited for one of the meetings. And I think, I can't remember what was happening on that particular day, but Leonard Ithao was the president then.
At the time.
And I think I
okay.
just got hooked immediately. And from there, I've never looked back.
So that's roughly about 5 years now
5 years
in
ago.
Rotary.
Yes, 5 years
And
ago.
over the time, I think you probably served in different
I
committees
have. I
and
mean,
board.
yes, I think Leonard threw us. In fact, the 2017 class was a very, very active class. We were quite known. We were vocal. We were thrown right into
The deep end.
deep end by
Yeah.
Leonard immediately. We didn't even know what we were doing because I remember Ndungo and I were given the mandate to, because that's when Oxford had given quite a number of
The
books.
books, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, there were quite a number of books, and our job was now to make sure that we distribute them in the district, actually in the 47 counties, and it was one of the toughest jobs for us to have done. So it was nice to join Rotary and then be thrown right into the deep end.
I think that happens a lot to people in Rotary. I mean, first of all, there's this famous saying that Rotary is for busy people. Quite often I wonder how we get to do so much given that we're all busy. But also this idea of getting thrust into it sometimes is best. I remember like when I was a Rotaractor, I became a club president, I think within the second year.
Oh, wow.
And it was only because the last guy had to back out for various reasons. And,
Yeah.
without planning for it,
Yeah.
you're thrust into this
Mm.
position. So I gather for you that was something of a new
Oh,
experience.
it was, and especially having to deal with volunteers, it wasn't easy,
Mm,
because then, like you're saying, everybody's busy. So trying to find people to then have a meeting with Oxford, sit down and find out how do we distribute these millions of books to 47 counties. What formula do we use and all that. And then just to answer in terms of, so I've served in different roles. I've served as a fundraising director. I've served as a speaker secretary. This is where you're required to ensure that every Wednesday there's somebody engaging, speaking to Rotarians. Of course, I've now served as the vice president and the president elect for the club for the last 3 years. Yes.
awesome.
Mm,
So obviously, it sounds to me like you got an early, baptism by fire, in terms of getting thrust into various leadership roles in the club.
yeah.
And then at this point in time, you became, again, I think within our club, and I think generally in Rotary, we plan for more or less 3 years ahead.
Yes.
We have our different roles before you become a president.
Mm.
And maybe you can share with us, the journey to becoming a president. Was it something you applied for? Were you nominated? How did that process come about so that you're now the president?
I did not apply for it. In fact, I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm one of
Yeah.
those people who had said, by the way, me, I'm vocal. I love to serve, as you know, and I wanted to do things from the back end.
Yeah.
But I think when Anne was thrown into it, because I think one of our members stepped down from presidency, so then there was a bit of disorganization at that point, and so a number of members said, no, the next person should be Lorraine, and I said, absolutely not. I am not taking this role. Me, I want to be at the back seat and just do things from the back end and support from there. So I had a couple of calls from some of the council of elders, and they said, no, it's your time. It's your time. Everybody has said you
They didn't
can't
give you
say
room to back out.
no. I had no room to say no. So
And,
that's how I ended up here.
and what about your friends, your family? How did they take this decision? Because obviously it starts to impact many aspects of your life when you become a
Absolutely.
president.
It was not a shocker to anybody, to be honest. Sometimes you don't see it yourself, but
Mm,
everybody looks at you from this angle of you are born a leader. So I mean, there's no shock here. You should be able to do this. But also it's from that perception of, and one of the reasons, to be very honest, why I was saying no is because one of the time. But number
mm,
two, the perception we've had, for you to be a president, you must be a very wealthy person. Because then when you look at how
mm.
much giving is involved, how much travel is involved, how much financial obligation is involved, I'm like, no, I'm a young mother. I have a child in school. I have
Yes.
a new business to look into. So that was one of the reasons why I was really, really vehemently saying no to this.
But then you took it on, and now here we are.
Yeah, and you have to create it your own way as a president, because I think Rotary, when I think about what our objective is, service above self, it really shouldn't be anybody should be able to become a president.
Yeah.
I've actually argued that people like Father Bukenya, who does a lot of charity work and all that, should be able to become a president, because it's from your leadership skills, um, being of service to the community. It really shouldn't be pegged on how much money you have for you to be a leader in
Mm.
Rotary.
Do you think there's a possibly a perception problem that Rotary has? And I'm talking about the fact that I think historically it's been usually older, very successful people, very male dominated historically. And I think the perception also for many people is that Rotary maybe is expensive,
Mm,
or, you know, sometimes people even have an imposter syndrome, I suspect, because
mm,
it's for those other people and not for me. I don't know what your
mm.
thoughts are around that. And I think I'd like you also talk a little bit about, the role in women have in the leadership of Rotary today versus, let's say, 20 years ago.
Mm, mm. I think, and of course, there's a controversy that has been around because of a feature that was done the other day on one of the
Hmm.
media houses. And of course, because this person dared to mention Rotary, we all went up in arms
Yeah.
because of it. But I think the only thing he said is one of the oldest organizations that has existed is Rotary, and that was the truth. And yes, indeed, it was meant for the older people. I mean, when you think about Paul Harris and his four friends who met for lunch, and each of them had a different profession, and they met to sit and discuss different things. They all supposedly did not come from money, because there was a tailor.
Mm.
Their first project, if you remember, was building a toilet in Chicago. I mean, Africa, yeah. When they, when they keep saying that we are the poorest, their first project in Rotary was to build toilets because they had a problem in the US in terms of sanitation. Um, The perception, yes. The other day I asked somebody, how much do you think it costs for us to be Rotarians? She gave me another figure. I was like, that's what you think about how much we pay to be a Rotarian? I'm like, wow. It was something close to half a meter a year.
What?
Yeah. I'm like, where do you get these figures from? I said, that's what is out here. That's what people talk about. I'm like, it is literally 20,000 Kenya shillings a year for you to become a Rotarian.
And you don't even have to pay it in lump
And you
sum.
don't even have to pay it in lump sum, you know? But yes, it's been given, the perception has been that we are these wealthy people that come together to do good, so to speak. And one of the ways I strongly feel, and even when this person was being interviewed from a different organization, I said the only way to beat this, and I think we are well on our way there,
Mm.
is focus more on what it is we do in the communities. Talk about it more. Have it out there. Have the media feature the work we are doing with the communities, because then that way we will be talking more and showing more of what it is we do as Rotarians, as opposed to having it on our websites, on our pages, and it's not in the public domain. So the more we are doing our projects, the more we invite the outsiders, the more partnerships we have, I believe we will then open it up to the public to understand what we do.
And what about the role of women? How do you see that working out in Rotary at a club level, for instance?
It's, for me, it's a joy. It's a joy that we women were allowed to become Rotarians just the other day, 1980, was it 81 or 82, around there. And when you look now, the ratio of men to women in Rotary, I mean, this year we have 70% of presidents who are women, like never before. We have
It's a
a
global or the
globally,
district?
globally. You
Wow.
have the RI president who's female. I was in Lagos in July. The district governor is female for the first time. The district governor here in the district 9212 is female for the first time. Like I've said, we have 70 something percent, almost 80% of presidents being female. So for me, I feel the role of women in Rotary has really been escalated. And no offense to men, but you can see more of the projects that we are getting involved with now that are touching more on family. We are going beyond just the education. We are going beyond. I mean, for the first time, you're seeing the kitties for girls,
And the gender-related
and the
issues.
gender-related issues are being brought to the forefront. Yeah, so I think it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing time for Rotary for
Okay.
women.
Then I think another aspect I'd love to touch on is probably the aspects of youth. I think
Mm,
Rotary to grow globally and especially around Kenya and Africa is also about, you know, it's almost like the regeneration, as it were. We need young people to come through, and maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the things that we have done as a club to reinvigorate our club,
mm,
to bring the age down in terms of that, because I think young people have a lot of energy, a lot of
absolutely,
inspiration.
yes.
What are some of the things that we're doing as a club to incorporate the youth into what we do?
So one of the things, especially this year, or it started, I think, last year, the Rotary International has decided to include the Rotaractors as part of Rotary, because before they've always been on their own. There's
Okay.
Rotaractors and then there's Rotarians. But now we are being treated equally in that if it's fundraising, we are encouraging them. Instead of us just coming and giving to them, we are saying, show us what it is, what activities are you doing? How can we plug into your activities as well? So that it's not a matter of we are just taking care of them. They are being forced now to think on their own. So they are part of the board, like in our board now, they are part of our board committee, where as we're making an annual plan, they are making their annual plan and then we sync it. Which is also a way for us to mentor them
Hmm.
into the leadership roles. But also, I guess, Moses, it's a question of, so when these guys turn 30 or whatever age it is that you transition, we have rarely seen a transitioning from Rotaractor to Rotarian. And I think the more they're getting involved in these leadership roles, the more now they're being converted into Rotarians. And there's being an encouragement for them to now transition from Rotaractor to being Rotarians. And I've seen a few more clubs being born from Rotaractors purely to
That
Rotarians.
transition, yeah.
Yeah, that transition is very important. And it's been missing for a couple of years.
So I think one of the things that I noticed during the pandemic, because many of us were not able to attend meetings, including in our club, a lot of our meetings went virtual. But I personally went a bit quiet for a while there during COVID, and now I'm attending most meetings. And I think one of the things I've noticed in our club is there's a lot of young people
Mm-hmm.
and even occupying senior positions within the club boards and so forth. So maybe you can share your perspective around how that happened and how you're driving that forward.
So for me, it was very intentional. So when I was selecting my board, for example, um, I took a huge risk. A risk
Uh-huh.
of, number one, not recycling leaders. Because for the last 5 years, we've been the same people being brought back.
Yes.
And, there's fatigue because you can imagine you have your own 8 to 5 job, you are a family man, and then you have this leadership role. And Rotary, I can promise you, as you very well know, it's almost like a full-time job on its own.
Mm.
So for me, I took a gamble and I said, you know what? Let's try new people. Let's see what because they also bring in new ideas. Let's try younger people. We have the Ndegas of this world who are in technology and bring them in. Let them add a new voice all together to the same 7 areas of focus, but they're
Mm.
looking at it in a very different way. And it has really challenged us, even as a club. And then, of course, when they invite friends and people to join the club, they won't go and invite Moses, you're old. They will go and invite, they'll go and invite their own
Mm.
peers, So you can now see a dynamic where we're getting younger and younger people joining the club. And hence, I think the dynamism of the club and the joy and the new activities that people are bringing on board to do.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed about your year, and I think this is very deliberate because it feels like there's a relentless volume of activities. There's so much going on, it feels to me. And I know that recently you also released your 100-day report. I'm just curious about that because it just seems there's a lot happening. And at the same time, maybe you can share with us what has happened in the last 100 plus days during your time as president.
Yeah, so it's all intentional. I'm about impact, and when you look at Rotary generally, we
Hmm.
have projects and activities far and wide. So you can be there just having weekly fellowships, but rarely do you have projects you're visiting. In fact, rarely do members know where the projects are unless you hear it a day before that you're
Mm.
going to launch something that you never knew about. So when we had our first meeting with the board, one of the things I say to them is, we really must be intentional about impact. We must meet a lot together. We must have so many bonding sessions. So whether it's the karaoke, whether it's the someone at the mountain, whether it is, there has to be something that is bringing us together beyond the weekly fellowship.
Mm.
That way we get to know each other better. I mean, if you remember, we did the business speed dating,
Yes, I remember
and
that.
many people had thought this will not work. And I said, let's try it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? It will not work the next time we want to do it, or we will find a better way to do it. And it was one of the most successful things we did. People have gotten clients, they've gotten to know each other better because we meet for 1.5 hours weekly.
Mm.
I mean, you come, we do the meeting, you're running. Rarely will you do swallowship or do whatever. It's such a short time for me to get to know who you are better. And one of the purposes of being a Rotarian, we keep saying, is networking, getting to know each other, supporting each other's businesses. And we don't get to do that. So we have been very intentional this year about not just fellowshipping, but bonding and getting to know one another as club members.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last 100 days,
The
what have
last
we?
100 days have been interesting. I feel like I am a politician. You know how they, the way you feel like you're saying, I took over office and there was no, you're like, so what have we done in the last 100 years? And for me, that's why I pegged it on the question, why? Why are you a Rotarian? And even when I do my newsletters every month, the question I end up with is, why are you a Rotarian? Because it's important for you to go back and ask yourself, why are you a Rotarian? Why are we recruiting? Why are we
Mm.
working with Rotaractors? Why do we do what we do? And I think the moment we start answering the question why, then we'll be able to achieve some of the objectives we've set for ourselves. So it's been an interesting 100 days. Of course, transitioning from the previous regime, bringing people together, coming off COVID, where we were on and
Mm-hmm.
off, meeting online, offline. So it's been an interesting journey the last 100 days, but we've also achieved quite a bit. And for me, I keep saying, whether we raise so much money or whether we meet as often as we should, as long as there's the oneness in the club, for me, that is my biggest aim,
Mm.
to bring the club members back together.
Mm. From your perspective and looking at, I think, the track record of our club, I think we've done very well. The projects we've done, I think, DGE Leonard Ithau is our third district governor, um, which is quite exceptional. But
Mm.
looking at all that and just wondering, maybe as we talk about our club, what are the kind of the qualities that you think um, exemplify what becomes a good Rotarian in a club like the Rotary Club of Karen?
I think being very, I keep going back to the word intentional about how we recruit members. Why do you want to join the Rotary Club of Karen? Number one, but also number two. When I look at the areas of focus that Rotary is very keen on, I feel like we have managed to diversify the people we are bringing into the club. Um, there are guys like yourself in communication, but then we bring other guys like Ndigas and Kois of this world who then bring and wear another hat on how do we enhance this communication
Mm.
of
And
of
new
the
skill
message,
sets and
the new skill
capabilities.
sets in our communities. Project managers, yeah, you're doing a fantastic job here, but how can we do it better so that
Hmm.
then we are serving our communities in a better way? Still on the 7 areas of focus, but then wearing a different hat on how we are addressing these issues. So I think we've really managed to get a really good diverse classifications, as we call them, joining the club. And even now, as we continue to recruit, we are saying, what is missing? We've struggled with photography, we've struggled with videography, we've struggled with graphic designers. So we are intentionally now putting word out there. These are the people we are looking to join the Rotary Club of Karen because there's a need that we would love for you to come and fill this gap.
So there's a lot of responsibility, I think, when I think about our club in particular. There's a rich legacy of projects, of ambition, the kind of people and personalities that have been in leadership in our organization. And I'm just wondering whether, as much as we've talked about the ingredients around the individuals, but do you think there are any unique aspects that have been behind the success of this club since it was formed?
I think number one is the fact that we have some great leaders in the past. And I think, like you said, we are now having our third district governor coming from this club. There's a lot of respect from the district, from the Rotary International angle for the Rotary Club of Karen, because a lot of our members do serve in the district level, which means you have a lot of knowledge on what is going on.
Mm.
As a president now, I get a lot of emails from different international clubs
Hmm.
looking for one partnership or the other, because then there's also a track record. I mean, I can tell you for now, the last 3 years, 2 years actually, we've been running a global grant fund of close to 80 million Kenya shillings.
Wow.
Now, for people to trust you with that level of finances means it speaks volume about what that club does and what they stand for. And beyond just holding that amount of money is the fact that you can look at the projects that we've been involved in, be it water and sanitation, be it education and literacy, be it health, disease prevention and treatment. When you look at some of the projects we've been involved in and the impact it has on society, then it really speaks volume about what the club stands for. And I think for me, that gives me a lot of pride.
I think it was just last week when we were doing the global hand washing,
Mhm.
and I think our club and through the district managed to get soap from Lifebuoy, I think
Yes.
Unilever. And I was there with you guys, and at least I was at one of the schools. I took photos, and for me, I think one of the most endearing things is those moments when you're in the community, when you're doing something of service.
Mhm.
There's no monetary value, but seeing
Yeah.
those children's
Yeah.
faces, seeing them take soap home to themselves for
Yeah.
themselves and their families.
Yeah.
How has that impacted you over the years as a Rotarian? Moments like that. How would you describe it to somebody who's not a Rotarian? What that feels like?
Let me tell you, there's no greater feeling in the world. You know how they say, as the person who is giving, you assume it's the other person that you're giving to that receives the joy. It is you, the giver, that ends up. I mean, it was such a satisfying day for me to have given soap to 2,500 children, but it wasn't about the soap. It was you go to this school that we went to, and this headmistress and the teachers are saying this running water is because Karen, Rotary Club of Karen, dug a borehole. because Rotary Club of Karen came and put these taps, and now we have water. We had not seen water in this school for years. In fact, one of the schools they didn't have water at all, at all, at all.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. And then someone tells, so I keep asking some of these teachers, so what has been the impact of us sinking a borehole in this school? And they're like, can you look at my register? Absenteeism has completely gone down because kids are coming to school. There's no sickness because they used to fetch water in a river, and that river is so contaminated. So kids were always sick. They never came to school.
Wow.
We never look at the impact. And for me, that's why I was saying this year we are all about measuring impact. So you find where a school they had about 40% absenteeism, it has gone up to now 70% kids are in school. They're reporting to school. There's clean drinking water. There's a reason for these children to be in school because you have partnerships like Oxford and Longhorn publishers who are giving them books. So when you look at their mean score, it has also now gone up in the last 5 years. So when you measure that impact, and I keep asking people, what more? I mean, why wouldn't you want to be part of this organization where you're impacting children and communities' lives?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think when you look at net, the impact, and as I think back to other projects like things that we did, like the police, the current police, where we built a library. I think what's that place called? I think there were two libraries we built. But just generally, I think ultimately, I think what people must appreciate is, I think the impact that Rotary and even the Rotary Club has had in the community in terms of just improving and enhancing the lives of people, going all the way to children up to adults, and all the different projects and undertakings
Absolutely,
that we have.
absolutely. Even having said that, now we look at the challenges of because there's a downside. I mean, there's always a positive side to things, but there's also
Yeah.
a downside to some of these things. I think one of the reasons why there's a negative perception on Rotary is because we don't give these stories. We don't give the stories of the impact. We tend to just, you've shown pictures. Do we go back and show? I mean, the last 1 year, Rotary as an organization had a great impact on environment in terms of bringing us back to the 10% forest cover. We planted so many trees as Rotarians in conjunction with KFS and many other people. But we don't go back to give these stories and say we planted 1,000,000 trees or we planted 2,000,000 trees. How are these trees doing 3 years later? I think our M&E is also suffering. We don't go back to now give these impact stories. And I think that's one of the challenges I have seen. The other challenge I have seen, and this one will also make part of one of my most amazing moments as a Rotarian.
Yeah.
So during COVID, because of the partnerships we have, we were given water tanks. And so we were told, look for these communities that are very needy and please give them the water tanks. So we decided to do a community assessment test so we just don't show up with water tanks. So we drove to one of these communities and we were so excited. We have water tanks of 10,000 liters and 5,000 liters. So this grandmother welcomes us, very excited. And she says in Kikuyu, oh, you have come. Welcome. She's even clapping for us. So me, in a moment, I detect some sarcasm in her voice. And she says, oh, you've come. Ah, you've even brought water tanks. Oh, aren't you amazing people? Have you brought water? So let me tell you, in that moment, it occurred to us, their problem is not water. Their problem is not washing hands. Their problem was not even COVID. In fact, she said, you rich people, you're the ones who are sick. As we don't know this sickness. I have 5 grandchildren. They have no food. I buy, so she brought a jerrycan and said, do you know how much I buy water for this? I think it was a 5-liter jerrycan. 20 shillings. Moses, that woman cannot afford 20 shillings because it was COVID. And most of the work that they do is work in most of these current suburb homes as gardeners, as house girls, but they couldn't go because there's COVID. So now they're stuck at home and she must feed her grandchildren. So you have a product here that you've been donated for to go and give to these poor communities, but it's exactly what they don't need. So we had to go and buy her food. And for us, it quickly changed what our communities that we serve, Queen, Dagataka, what they needed wasn't water tanks. Other
Just
people might need
basics.
that. For them, they needed food
More than anything.
more than anything. They needed cereals, they needed unga for porridge, and that's it. You have answered a need. Last week, we went to Kaimurunya Primary School. Again, assumptions. We are here writing a global grant and saying We think your problem is you have 1,200 children, but your sanitation is terrible. You have 6 toilets for these
Mm.
1,200 children. The head teacher looks at us and says, that is the least of my problems. In fact, don't come here to fix the toilets. We can survive another 2 years with these toilets. Our desks are a big problem.
That's the real issue.
That's a real issue. Moses, she took us to class. In fact, she literally brought, I'll send you those pictures. She
Yeah.
brought out desks for us to see how one desk is shared between 5 kids. Some are sitting on top of jerry cans.
Wow.
And she said,
Basic furniture.
basic. So sometimes as volunteers, as organizations that do service for these communities, community assessments are so important because what you sit and deliberate in your boardrooms or in your meetings,
Yeah.
assuming is a problem for these people,
Yeah.
is far from what they need.
If somebody wants to become a part of Rotary or even the Rotary Club of Karen, what are the things you would ask them to ask themselves whether it's going to work for them?
Why? For me, it goes back to why. Why do you want to become a Rotarian?
That's the principle. That's the
That is
key.
the key because and that's why I'm really a person of quality versus quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this other challenge in Rotary where we are being pushed to grow numbers.
Mm.
But for what reason? Because then you will come, we have inducted members who never come back another day. Because for them, you told them, you must attend 7 meetings, you must attend a service project, you must. They meet all those. But the reason why they wanted to join, you don't know. It could be because you meet in Karen Club and they assume they can be members through Rotary Club. You can't. That's not, we are just being hosted there, you know? Or you think you can come and start selling your merchandise. You must really find out why do you want to become a Rotarian? And then volunteers, the other problem we have is you don't realize the only thing that you're required to do as a volunteer is give of your time, yeah, your resources. I mean, that's basically it. So if you cannot give of your time or your resources, this might not be the place for you then.
And I think over the years I've seen it. There are people who maybe join sometimes for business
Mm-hmm.
or networks, and usually 2 years, 3 years at most they last.
Yeah.
But the drop off is quite significant when
Very.
the intent or the thesis behind their joining, what it really was.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that needs to come out clearly, that people should be coming for the right reasons as opposed to possibly the wrong agenda. Others, they won't get much out of it.
Absolutely. And even as Rotarians, I feel we must be very honest on what is, because you see how people say, gosh, I didn't realize it's too much work. It is too much work. You're serving communities. It is too much work. It will require of you to give so much, especially of your time, of your expertise, to come and help us help those communities. So yes, there's a lot of your time that
Yeah.
goes into this. So you can't act shocked 2 months into it and say, I didn't realize it's too much work. It is. It is. So we must be very honest when we are recruiting, give the entire picture of what being a Rotarian means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it also explains why we've remained at 1.2 million for so long.
As
Because
a,
the same way we are recruiting is the same way they are getting out. So they come in, but they also get out in equal measure.
yeah, and I think something also, the pandemic did for us is, I think we had to kind of unthink how we do meetings, unthink how we run our activities, because now we were digitally forced to change how we organized ourselves. And I think today, even as a club, we still do virtual and a hybrid
Yeah, we do
meeting
hybrid meetings. Yeah.
to bring in all our people. So who knows? Maybe the pandemic will become another way of sort of accelerating growth, especially with the youth. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It was such a blessing. I keep saying COVID was it was a curse, but it was also a blessing in many ways that we were able to embrace. I mean, I remember because you and I in comms, Skype was a thing that even, you're trying to have a meeting on Mombasa Road and you're coming from Karen, you're thinking, man, see, we just do an online meeting, and nobody used to embrace it. But all of a sudden now it's become a thing because you cut my journey, you cut my time, we are able to be more effective in what we're doing. So I think even in terms of recruiting, and I'm hoping even by the end of this year that we'll also have a Karen e-club, where we are able to have more people who don't have now time to do physical meetings, but they can have an e-meeting and also be equally impactful in the community.
Absolutely. So from your perspective, where do you see our club going in the next 2 to 5 years? What does the future look like from your perspective?
we will completely change how we are doing things, in that we have very new members also
Mm,
taking on leadership in the
mm-hmm.
next 2 years. The president elect, because of the succession plan of Rotary, where you know who will be who in 3 years. I feel because the president elect, and the vice president working very closely together means that whatever we begin today, I don't need to finish it, because that's the other challenge for Rotary, where every year I'm coming to try and shine or outshine the previous person
Mm,
and
mm.
do my own things. I'm really not about that. I am hoping that some of the things we start today will be implemented in next year or the year before. But then there's going to be a continuation, so that then we don't have projects all over the place, or repeating the same projects over and
Mm,
over. And that allows for growth,
mm.
when the three of you work very closely together, and you have clarity of minds that this is what the Lorraine board has started. It will be completed in the COES year.
I get you.
You get what I
So there's
mean?
more longevity behind these
Exactly,
things
because honestly, 12 months is a very short time to do anything. I mean, 100 days are gone. We have another nine
already.
months to go. I mean, how much do you think one person can do in that short period of time? But if well planned and organized, I think we will have more impact. And in terms of a club, we will be able to know what is missing, what are those gaps that we can
Mm.
fill in, and especially with the many new Rotarians that we are recruiting every month.
In these 5 or so years that you've been in Rotary, and I think that's a relatively short time even to become a president, I would say. Um, are there any interesting life lessons you've picked up along the way? Things that you think our audience might find valuable to them, whether they're Rotarians, possibly aspiring Rotarians, or even Rotaractors? Are there any interesting things that come to mind during this time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How much time do you have? Just joking.
Yeah.
So for me, it's and especially now, yeah, after wearing the heart of a president, leading leaders
Leading
ain't
leaders, huh?
for the faint-hearted.
And the egos that go with that.
Oh my God. Because then, and you know the dynamics of our club,
Mhm.
everybody is a who is who. Everybody is a leader in their own right in the organizations that they work for. So here you are, with your own ideas and the things that you'd want done. And there are people already very set in their minds. This is a small person now, what is she coming to tell us?
And then a lady, not a man.
And then a lady. Yeah, let's add all those things. So leading leaders is not easy. Um, Working together, I think for me, I feel from RI to the district and now to the club level, I feel this notion of outshining one another,
Mm, mm.
or we're all about winning awards, drags us behind. You can imagine how much impact, and I love what our DGE keeps talking about. If we came together as 10 clubs, as 30 clubs, as 100 clubs, took on one project, the impact then that would have in our country. I mean, Jennifer Jones, the RI president, was in Zambia the other day. Why? Because they're doing a big project on malaria. It,
It's a multi-club
it's
thing.
a multi-club thing. Not one single club can do it. So the moment we remove this idea of, and awards are good, competition is good, and all that is fantastic, but what is our bigger objective as Rotarians? If we looked at it that way, I think we'd have such an enormous impact in this country.
Maybe as we go into that question, maybe we can talk a little bit about the Rotary Foundation. I know that people appreciate what the foundation is and what it does. And I think the endowment now is it 1.5 billion or something?
Yeah, it's
$1.5 billion. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that and how our club has also been able to tap into that.
fantastic. I love that question, and the reason I love that question is because I've been in meetings recently where I've had to fight back and talk about the impact even we have as Africans, as Rotarians, because we tend to look at the West and say they're the ones giving us the money,
The resources,
the
yes.
resources. No, we all give into this Rotary Foundation kitty. So the same way they are fundraising. In fact, somebody was telling me the other day he's from the Rotary Club of Tulsa or something like that, and he was saying him, the daughter, and a few other, and these are guys in their 70s. They are doing bungee jumping to raise some money to then collect it together to give to the Rotary Foundation so that then some projects can be helped in Africa.
Yes.
But when we sit here, we are thinking, oh, those Mzungus they're ones who are giving us a lot of money, so we must really bow down to them. I'm like, no. Every penny that we give, those happies, when you give your 200 shillings, I give my 100 shillings, somebody else gives their 1,000 shillings. That's what we collectively then put into this kitty for the Rotary Foundation that goes and does all these big things that comes back to us in double, or it is tripled from Rotary International. So the Rotary Foundation is something I feel we need to learn more about for us to be able to understand, where does this money come from? How do we collect this kitty, all of us as Rotarians, to then build it to the billions that it is? It's not one club, it's collectively the over 1.2 million of us. We are the ones who build the Rotary Foundation.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about the Paul Harris Fellow, that particular designation in Rotary and what it means. And of course, in our club, I know we have quite a few.
We are doing very, very well as a club in terms of the growth of the Paul Harris Fellow. So it is where you give your $500 or your $1,000. Usually we'll have challenges that will match that, so that then you get to the 1,000 USD. And what then it does is, when you become like 10, 20, right now we are currently, I think, 30 of us who are Paul Harris Fellows in the club. And collectively, that money is then sent to Rotary Foundation, or rather RI, for it to then come back and support on the global grants that we do. So I was giving you an example of how much we are holding as a single club, over 80 million. That's about what, 600 and something thousand US dollars that we are holding as a club, that then is taken into different projects, the water and sanitation. So for the Rotary Club of Karen, we've been very big on water and sanitation. So we've got schools where we've gone and refurbished their toilets, improved on the sanitation. We've done water pans in Kitui, for example. We are very big on education, basic education and literacy. And all these things are built from the little monies that you give in your happies, in your sads, every week. That's how we have built our Rotary Foundation kitty as the Rotary Club of Karen. And the fact that we are able to apply for all these grants, be it at the district level or at the Rotary International level, just speaks volume on how we keep building and giving back to our community. It cascades back to the communities.
Awesome. Awesome. Are there any special Rotary moments that come to mind for you? Things that in the 5 years you've been in our club that just stand out as moments that really, exemplified for you the Rotarian life?
Absolutely. I mean, the first one was, of course, the Gataka visit during COVID with the old grandmother.
Uh-huh.
That one for me changed entirely how I look
What
at.
happened in that exactly?
That's the one I was telling you about, the water
Oh,
tanks.
the mother, yes, okay.
The old grandmother.
Yes.
And the fact that we cannot sit here and assume we know what the community needs. We must go to the community and ask them what their needs are. But the moment, the year I joined Rotary, I think there had been a very successful dental smile project that had been done in the country that was very, very successful, where they were correcting the left
cleft, yes.
the cleft lip. And I think for me, when I sit back and imagine how Jeff Bamford and them got into this partnership that then, touched communities far and wide in this country, it touches my heart completely. And the fact that it is from that small amount of money you give, collectively, what that amount of money can do, how many lives it can impact. So when I first joined and I heard about the Dental Smiles project, that was one of the things that had me sold completely. The fact that we could donate books to a place like Mpeketoni.
Yes.
I mean, how we got books that far, Lamu and such places, kids who had never in their lives held a textbook in their hands, goes again to show you the impact Rotary have. But for me, I think the biggest success story is the fact that now corporates understand, if you need hands, speak to Rotarians. It's not about money. And I think that's the other challenge we were even giving them on this food disaster that we're facing currently, the hunger disaster that we're facing currently. You have this food in stores and all these donations that have been given. Your biggest problem is distribution. the best person to do the
Mm.
distribution for you would be Rotarians. Why? We're in the 47 counties. We have the hands, we have the manpower to be able to reach any point of this country and help you do the distribution. So the fact that even corporates are trusting us and saying, when you have water tanks, who do you go to? Rotarians. When you have books and you want them to reach Mpeketoni and everywhere else, who do you go to? Rotarians. So for me, I think we have really had a great amount of stride.
And I think a part of that has to do with the expected integrity of
Yes.
Rotarians and Rotary
Yes.
clubs. The fact
Yes.
that there's accountability, there's
Yes.
structures, that things won't be misappropriated, for
Mm.
instance, right?
Mm.
And I think
Mm.
even the hand washing last week,
Exactly.
I mean, those were millions of shillings worth of soap, yeah,
Absolutely,
that we
absolutely,
distributed
absolutely,
nationwide, right?
absolutely. And I think the four-way test that we live by is a friend of mine was in Ghana last week, just to digress, and she took a picture of she went in one of the government offices, the judicial actually offices, and right there in the middle of their offices of their compound is a four-way test.
No way.
Yeah,
They've adopted it for
yeah,
themselves.
completely. They've adopted for themselves. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's actually it's one of the underpinnings, isn't it? That the principles, the
absolutely.
expectation that I think even sometimes in business engagements when I meet people, and I think just 2 weeks ago I was at an event and there's a lady from one of the other Rotary clubs, and it's almost a kinship or a certain standard of expectation you have that if I have to deal with this person in any context, there's a certain expectation of integrity, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that those four questions, if we and that's why I think they made part of my speech during my installation, because I think they've literally now guided who I am as a person. Forget
Yeah,
as a Rotarian, as a person. That in everything I'm doing, whether it is this podcast, whether it is a meeting that I'm holding,
yeah,
is it the truth that the things I'm going to say? Is it fair to all concerned here?
yeah.
Is it beneficial to everybody? You know, the moment you start asking yourself those four questions, I think fundamentally you're on the
It
right
becomes your
track.
true
It
north,
becomes your true
not just
north
in Rotary but in life.
in life. Absolutely,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
life. Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any other insights you might want to share um, around your time in Rotary, anything that comes to mind that maybe we haven't touched on.
I think for me, really, the pressing issue, and I think once on June 30th, 2023, when I'm handing over, and I'm very excited to be saying,
Mm,
phew, um, will be if we will have been able to bring Rotarians across this country together and look for a way or a project that we can all combine and do together, where it's not about what this club is going to win or who the president of that club is. It's about impact. And I think for me, I feel we've done very many small things. I mean, you're holding 15 million as a club, another club is holding 10 million, and you're each doing small things. One of the things that stood out when we did the hand wash last Friday during the Global Hand Washing Day was the state of our primary schools.
mm.
Oh, I saw some of the pictures and cried. If you see the toilets that these children are going to, it breaks your heart, completely breaks your heart. So I've been saying, and I've been challenging the district and saying, how about we did a wash countrywide project? What would be the
Mm.
impact of that?
At
Just
that level.
refurbish, yeah, at that level. Just refurbish the toilets. Yes, we have the 7 areas of focus, but what is that most pressing thing?
And at scale.
And upskill. Upskill.
The way you're talking, and you talked about leaders of leaders, I have to ask the question. Can we imagine the one who didn't even want to become president and now is doing an exemplary job in yourself,
Oh, thank you, Moses.
possibly becoming the next district governor? Shall we give you a
Shall we
couple of
move on to
years?
another interesting question?
Or even RI itself?
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Do you see that in your potential?
No, I don't. But
Well, I see it. I think it could happen.
I think it's just, like I said, I've done charity work for a very long time.
It's been
And
integral to your personality.
yes,
Yeah.
giving back to community is really so big for me. But at what level? This year, for example, one of the things we are very keen on doing as a project is on special needs children.
Oh, yes, yes.
I mean, statistics now are showing that for every 5 children born today, one will have a new developmental disease. So
Wow.
cerebral palsy, autism, name it. If we are not wearing a heart as Rotarians, identifying what are those needs today or even in the coming future that are going to affect these children. We are talking about global warming. You're looking at
Climate change. Yeah.
climate change. I was speaking to a doctor yesterday who was telling me they're setting up a hospital, for example, in Athi River now. Why? Because in another 5, 6 years, we will have so many children suffering from the same new developmental diseases. Why? All the factories moved that way. We haven't
Wow.
thought of that impact.
It's
Exactly.
happening
It's
already.
happening already. I mean, forget environment, which is a big thing. Yeah. And also on environment, I've kept saying, why are we planting more trees? What's the purpose? What else can we do around environment? It can't just be about planting of trees.
So it almost sounds like there needs to be a fundamental shift in focusing on the issues that are current, but those that are coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've had the 7 areas of focus, but they've evolved. They've evolved. What we did as WASH 10 years ago, it's not the needs for WASH today. What we need, what I mean, environment is very new as an area of focus. What maternal child healthcare was then, the biggest problem was making sure that mothers are giving birth. Today is not the problem. Mothers are giving birth, but giving birth to children with issues, you know? So what are we doing to address those issues? Are we looking at how have things changed? Because they have. And how then do we address how we tackle them?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Lorraine, parting shot, as it were, you and I have an affinity for a particular football team.
Yes.
And
And be on top of that.
and maybe we can segue from that. I'm just curious because I know it's a quirky detail. It's a thing that you and I often on social media
Yeah.
celebrate or cry together upon.
Or get attacked together.
Yes, yes. But tell us a little bit about that football. I know it's not Rotary specific, but let's just talk a little bit about how did you get into football and particularly this club that we both love, and how do you feel about the current Premiership season that we're having?
The year was 2001, Moses. That was my first encounter. I had just come to Nairobi in, I think, 1999. So the year 2000, I joined some friends in going to watch football. So I've always loved sports, but I was more towards basketball. Then we go and watch football,
Hmm.
English Premier. And of course, then you had to watch it in bars
I
or
remember.
places because then DSTV was unaffordable for, well, a lot of people. And then there was this team, my God, called Arsenal. And we were winning. I mean, we were winning many games.
You even talk
In
about the
fact,
first moment as we were winning. You're already committed.
me, I was there. I was like, these are the guys. And they had who? Thierry Henry, Canu, and
Was it the fact that
Kina
a lot of
Ashley
African
Cole.
players
No,
that was a
really.
factor?
We had a good game, man. I mean,
And you fell in love with their game,
instantly. And then we won, I think in 2002, we won the
the
FA.
Premiership
Yeah,
and
we
FA.
did. I mean, what was there not to love about Arsenal? And then the loyalty. I think I haven't met a person. There are very few of us who defect. Otherwise,
Yeah,
once an Arsenal fan,
forever.
I keep saying if you want a partner, find an Arsenal
They're
man.
loyal. They
we are,
come back
we are
for
too
more.
loyal. We will be thrashed, and every time you think we are winning, we are. Yeah, so that has been my love for my love for Arsenal started in 2001. It goes back then. It was the first game, and I was hooked to them.
And now, of course, we're riding a high.
Oh, we are there on top. I keep sending you this
And
every
last
time,
night we won our
and
game.
we won another game last night. I was like, "Where's Moses?"
Yeah. So
And then
yeah, that's.
2008, I had the opportunity to go to Emirates. That was
Oh
like
no,
the
no way! I haven't even
highlight of
done
my
that.
life. That
You,
was the highlight
you
of
went
my life.
there? You went to?
Yes,
Wow.
yes, that was the highlight of my life. That's how I'm a diehard fan.
I haven't done that yet, but it's definitely on the
Ah,
cards.
there's nothing beats it.
Maybe we can get them to come to one of our projects.
You
Huh?
know,
We need to,
we
yeah.
should.
Anyway, but thank you so much, Lorraine. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. This
I
has
really
been
appreciate
fun.
it. And I think you're doing a wonderful job as a president.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love the way you reinvigorated us. I mean, like I said, there's so many activities, it's hard to keep up. And wishing you all the best for the rest of your presidency
Thank you so
of our
much.
club.
And thank you for the support and thanks for coming back. I know I literally had to put a gun on your head, but you're back and back with a
Oh,
bang.
yeah, I'm back. I'm back.
So I am grateful. And I'm grateful to all the Rotary Club members of Karen, the district. It's been such a great honor. And I'm looking forward to the next 9 months of serving as a Rotarian and as a president.
So thank you very much for joining us once again for this podcast, the Rotarians of Karen. And we've just had this great conversation with Lorraine, who's our president, who's leading us ably and confidently and sort of challenging the stereotypes and some of the legacies of our club. And we hope to join you for the next one. Asante Sana.